The King of Soul, a monumental figure in American music, one of the greatest singers and songwriters in history, that's Otis Redding. His profound influence on soul music and rhythm and blues is undeniable. His gospel-infused vocals, first showcased in the hit These Arms of Mine, resonated deeply, making him a beacon of emotional authenticity and leaving an everlasting imprint on the soul music scene. But tragically, his delightful career was cut short by a fatal decision that resulted in an unexpected and devastating airplane crash. Why this happened, and how can pilots improve their flight's safety through the lessons from this tragic accident? Let's find out in this video. First up, let's briefly talk about Otis. Born on September 9, 1941 in Dawson, Georgia, Otis Ray Redding Jr. As the fourth of 6 children, Redding's early life was humble. His father, Otis Redding Sr., transitioned from sharecropping to working at Robins Air Force Base, while also preaching in local churches. At 3, the family moved to Tyndall Heights, a predominantly African-American housing project in Macon, Georgia. Redding's musical talents blossomed early, singing in the Vineville Baptist Church choir and learning guitar and piano. By 10, he was taking drum and singing lessons, and during his time at Ballard Hudson High School, he joined the school band. At 15, Redding left school to support his family as his father battled tuberculosis, taking on various jobs like well digging and working at a gas station. Despite these challenges, his musical talent shone through. Inspired by legends like Little Richard and Sam Cooke, Redding performed gospel songs on the radio and won a teen talent show for 15 consecutive weeks. His dedication to music and family during these formative years set the stage for his legendary career. Redding's big break came in 1958 at a local talent contest, the Teenage Party. His rendition of Little Richard's Heebie-Jeebies caught the attention of guitarist Johnny Jenkins, leading to a partnership that saw Redding winning the contest for 15 straight weeks. He later briefly joined the Upsetters, earning around $25 per gig after Little Richard turned to gospel music. In 1960, Redding moved to Los Angeles with his sister Deborah, while his wife and children stayed in Macon. There, he recorded early tracks like Tough Enough and She's All Right, along with his own compositions, I'm Getting Hip and Gamalama, later known as Shout Bama Lama. When Walden sought a record deal for Johnny Jenkins, Atlantic Records' Joe Galkin sent them to Stax Studio in Memphis in 1962. Although Jenkins's session was unproductive, Redding seized the moment, recording Hey Hey Baby and the standout These Arms of Mine, which impressed studio chief Jim Stewart. Signed by Stewart, These Arms of Mine was released in October 1962, selling over 800,000 copies and launching Redding's debut album, Pain in My Heart, in March 1964. Despite copyright issues with the title track, the album reached number 11 on the R&B chart and number 61 on the Billboard Hot 100. Redding's slow tempo style earned him the nickname Mr. Pitiful, with hits like I've Been Loving You Too Long showcasing his soulful passion. Redding's success allowed him to purchase the Big O Ranch in Georgia and co-found Jodis Records with Walden and Joe Galkin, releasing works by Arthur Conley. Performing at Whiskey A Go-Go, Redding became one of the first soul artists to captivate Western U.S. rock audiences. His iconic 1966 rendition of Try a Little Tenderness, backed by Booker T and the MGs, peaked at number 25 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 4 on the R&B chart. His London performance at the Fillmore Auditorium, proposed by Bill Graham, was both a critical and commercial triumph. In 1967, Redding's electrifying performance at the Monterey Pop Festival, invited by promoter Jerry Wexler, was a career-defining moment. His dynamic renditions of Respect and the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction earned nationwide acclaim. Following Monterey, Redding recorded the timeless Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay, inspired by the Beatles. Despite initial doubts, the song, featuring its iconic whistle, became a chart-topping hit. But sadly, Redding encountered health problems, including laryngeal polyps, which resulted in his hospitalization in September 1967. Later that year, as the band traveled for performances in Redding's Beechcraft H-18 airplane, tragedy awaited. On December 9th, they appeared on the Upbeat television show in Cleveland and performed 3 concerts over 2 nights at Leo's Casino. After a heartfelt call with his family, Redding's next stop was Madison, Wisconsin, where they were scheduled to perform at the Factory nightclub near the University of Wisconsin on Sunday, December 10th. In the afternoon of that fateful day, around 12:30 p.m., Otis Redding and 5 members of his band, the Bar-Kays, guitarist Jimmy King, saxophonist Phelan Jones, organist Ronnie Caldwell, trumpet player Ben Cawley, drummer Carl Cunningham, and their valet Matthew Kelly, boarded a twin-engine Beechcraft H-18 that Otis had recently purchased. The pilot was Richard Fraser, who had logged 1,290 hours of flying experience, including 118 hours in Beechcraft planes. Meanwhile, band member James Alexander found himself on a commercial flight due to limited space on Otis's private plane. At the time, James felt unlucky, but he would soon realize that this twist of fate had actually spared his life. When James Brown discovered that Otis Redding was flying the same type of plane he had once discarded, he felt a deep concern for his friend's safety. Brown recalled, "On the last morning we talked, I said, 'That plane is not big enough for what you're doing. It can't handle all those people and equipment. You shouldn't be messing around with it like that.'" Otis, however, was undeterred. "Oh, it's all right, bossman," he reassured Brown. "We've had a few problems, but it's doing okay." Reflecting on this years later in his memoirs, Brown wrote, "Somebody was fooling Otis. They tried to do with his twin engine what I did with a Learjet, and it just wasn't possible. That plane was old, had a bad battery, and numerous service issues. It had no business flying in that kind of weather." The weather was dreadful that day, with heavy rain and fog, prompting people at the airport to advise Otis against flying. They cautioned him, "The weather is too bad and you shouldn't go. You need to cancel this gig." But Otis, determined and proud of his perfect attendance record, responded, "Man, I've never missed a day in my life and I'm not going to start now." He didn't want to disappoint his fans and, despite the risks, decided to proceed with the flight, saying, "Got to make that dollar." The pilot assured Otis that he could safely get them to Madison, so the group of 8 took off from Cleveland, Ohio, heading west. As they neared Truax Field in Madison, just 4 miles from their destination, everything seemed to be going smoothly. At 3:25 p.m., pilot Richard Fraser radioed for permission to land. However, shortly after, disaster struck. The aircraft began its descent through thick clouds, needing to fly over Lake Monona before reaching the airport. Just as they were approaching the shore, something went terribly wrong. The engine suddenly sputtered and stopped. With low visibility due to fog, the pilot had to rely solely on instruments, essentially flying blind. An eyewitness on the lakeshore saw the plane flying with its left wing lower than the right before it sharply banked and crashed into the lake, about half a mile from land. Remarkably, the aircraft remained intact upon impact, floating on the icy lake's surface for several minutes before slowly sinking. Bar-Kays band member and trumpet player Ben Cawley, who had been asleep, was awakened by his bandmate Phelan Jones, who exclaimed, "Oh no," looking terrified through his window. In a split second, Ben unbuckled his seatbelt and plunged into the icy lake, clutching a seat cushion to stay afloat. Unable to swim, he held tightly to the cushion, helplessly watching his friends drown and freeze to death, their desperate screams echoing across the lake. Ben painfully recalled, "I saw Carl come out of the water and I saw Matt come up on the other side. Ronnie's cries for help were heartbreaking, but eventually they all went silent, claimed by the cold lake." Just when Ben thought he couldn't hold on any longer, police officers on a boat found him near the floating bodies of Richard Fraser and Jimmy King. Rescue teams were quickly notified, and additional help was dispatched following emergency calls from locals. The first responders arrived within minutes, but the choppy, frigid waters made it difficult to reach the wreckage. It took 17 minutes for the rescue team to get there, fast enough to save Ben, but too late for the others. By then, the plane had sunk to the lake's depths. Suffering from early frostbite, Ben was taken to the hospital, where he was treated for cold exposure but had no serious injuries. He shared with the rescue team and later the media that he had heard the desperate cries of 2 men close to him, until suddenly there was silence, and they were gone, swallowed by the lake. He was unaware of the other's fate until a police officer told him, "Because everybody else is dead." Meanwhile, fans were already in line at the concert venue when news of the crash broke. They went home that evening, hoping Otis had survived, a hope shared by his wife. Around 5 p.m., She received a call from the Madison coroner, who described recovering a body of a tall and dark black man wearing a black undershirt, likely referring to Jimmy King. Trying to stay calm, she responded sharply, "That's not Otis." She pointed out that Otis never wore underwear and was an excellent swimmer. "He was out there alive. They just hadn't found him yet. Go find him," she demanded. However, the aircraft had plummeted to the lake's 40-feet depths, resting at a 45-degree angle, with its nose buried in the silt, its body twisted and torn open, missing its left wing and engine. Apart from the two individuals found near Ben Cawley, there was no trace of the other passengers or the pilot. Divers faced harsh conditions as they searched the waters for hours. The following morning, they made a horrendous discovery. Otis was found still buckled into his seat. Otis died at 26, survived by his wife Zelma and their 3 children, Dexter, Carla, and Otis III. The exact reason for the crash remains a mystery, even after the NTSB investigation. After the plane reached cruising height, Otis walked to the cockpit and sat in the co-pilot seat. This raises the question: did he ever actually fly the plane, especially in such bad weather? Otis wasn't a licensed pilot. He was only allowed to fly with a pilot and no passengers. So the idea of him controlling the plane seems far-fetched. Yet this question led to much speculation. The tragic crash of Otis Redding's plane underscores several critical lessons in aviation safety. Firstly, it is paramount to respect weather conditions. On that fateful day, the flight took off despite advisories to delay due to foggy conditions. The urgency to reach their concert led to a devastating crash, claiming 7 lives. This incident highlights the importance of prioritizing safety over urgency and exercising caution when weather conditions are unfavorable. Secondly, proficiency in instrument flying is crucial. In poor weather conditions, visual cues can disappear, leaving pilots reliant solely on their instruments. Otis Redding's pilot, Richard Fraser, was relatively inexperienced with instrument flying. The dense fog made visual navigation impossible, emphasizing the need for regular training and practice in using instruments. In such situations, instruments become the pilot's lifeline. Thirdly, while autopilot systems are helpful, they are not infallible. Fraser engaged the autopilot to follow radio signals towards Dane County Municipal Airport, but autopilot systems have limitations and cannot handle unexpected events or rapidly changing conditions. Pilots must not rely solely on autopilot. They need to monitor its performance and be ready to take manual control when necessary. Fourthly, effective crew resource management, or CRM, is essential even in single-pilot operations. Although Otis Redding was seated in the co-pilot seat, effective communication and coordination were still vital. CRM encourages open dialogue and cross-checks, which can catch critical errors and improve overall safety. Fifthly, emergency preparedness is vital. During the final approach, communication broke down, and Fraser faced numerous challenges. Pilots must train extensively for emergencies, practicing clear communication, emergency procedures, and decision-making under stress. Being well prepared can significantly impact the outcome in unexpected situations. Lastly, learning from historical accidents is invaluable. The crash serves as a stark reminder that studying past aviation accidents can prevent future tragedies. Analyzing accident reports and understanding the causes of previous crashes help in applying these lessons to enhance safety, contributing to a safer aviation environment for all. And that's the end of our video today. If you find it useful, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button to see more content like this in the future. Thank you for watching.